Hello, this is Jocelyn. This is my pitch for the Runaway Dream. So it starts off with a man sitting by himself on the side of the road. He's in Florida at the time, and he's just staring at these people going in different directions. It seems like to him, as he stares at the different people, that they're all going in their own paths, like a GPS system, reaching to their final goal, final destination. And as he keeps looking at these different people, he starts getting flashbacks of his past, to his family, which he once had, his wife and a little baby girl, to his moment of success and how it all went wrong. And he starts having these little flash moments at that, and it caused him a moment of regret as he stares at people, thinking that he doesn't have a dream anymore. Like his dream sort of died and causing him to have no purpose in life. This was until he met the little girl named Mary Ann, who at first kind of was asking him that, hey, what's wrong? Because he saw the man crying, and she wanted to see, curious 12-year-old wanted to see what was wrong. So she walked up to him and asked, and he didn't really notice her at first. So she sort of started rambling on about different things, from a cat that she once had that died and all that. And then when he finally looked up and noticed her, he was still rambling on about the cat. And then he asked, "Where are your parents?" In which she said that they were at the grocery store, and she was told just to wait here, which he didn't really believe her because he didn't think like his parents would just leave a 12-year-old out in the middle of nowhere with a strange man. So she asked her again, "Where are your parents? Why are you out here in the middle of the street?" And at first she didn't want to answer, but then she explained how she ran away from home because her mom didn't want her to pursue it in her dream. And her dream was to become a dancer, in which he thought was a really dumb idea, because based off his past, where he was trying to do his dream and it failed, he was thinking that there was no way that she, a little 12-year-old, was going to pursue her dreams, because if he couldn't, then she couldn't, basically. Like, it was kind of a stab of jealousy with a mixture of, like, regret. Basically, he was giving her some advice, since she was caring enough to ask him what was wrong when he hasn't felt that in a while. And during the time, like, they were talking, and she basically was like, "But this is what I want to do, and my mom wouldn't let me, so I ran away, and I don't know how to do this," and all that. And he was trying to explain to her that this is not a great idea. More flashbacks came back to his wife asking him, is his dream really more important than the family and all that? In which he was starting to feel a little bit related to the girl, because that's kind of what he had to go through in his past as well. But he still didn't want her to make the same mistakes that he did, because he felt a little bit sympathetic to her. So basically gave her some advice that, hey, you should just go back home. There's no point in doing this dream, because it's basically going to be set up for failure, and he shouldn't just make her mother just worry about her by running away and being an idiot. Basically, undertone stating that, hey, don't make the same mistakes I made. Just go back home before you do anything stupid. In which she responded that that this is what she wants to do. And she even asked him, like, wasn't there ever a dream that you had that you wanted to pursue? Like, wasn't there something that you wanted really desperately that you would do almost anything for? And that's where he didn't answer her at first. He sort of kind of like shoved her in the direction of wherever she last went to and tried to walk away. But she followed him and basically pestered him to keep to ask again, wasn't there a dream that you had? Which he was reluctant to answer at first, but then finally was like, he sighed for a moment, and then he sat on a bench, in which she sat with him, obviously, to see what he had to say. And that's when he went. He did have a dream. There was a time in his past where he did have a dream, and that led a long time ago, which led to a bigger flashback, which was of his past, starting out as a young man who just graduated college. He was fresh out of Florida, and he was ready for the big time. During the time, many people called him Danny, which we won't know his last name Ann until later on. And Danny really wanted to be a playwright / director. That was his dream since he was a child. He wanted to pursue it really bad. And he always boasted that he was going to make it big because his plays were gold. And but he had to, like a lot of people, start at the bottom, which for him, he started as just a backstage for a small playhouse of a director, also playwright, but not really, because Danny didn't know it at the time, but he until he was in the business, that a lot of young playwrights / directors were used for this certain director. I didn't really give the director the name, but I will call him Chad. Chad basically was known as this director that mooches off people, claiming all the fame and glory for each great performance, even though it wasn't his performance to begin with. And Danny happened to suffer that same fate, but he was so desperate for his work to be known that he decided to just agree with it, just for the sake of him to have experience, as well as gain more work, to let his work be known, even though it wasn't by him, and also because money. This was until one day he was particularly being nasty, and his he sort of he was yelling so much, like complaining, to a point where his voice sort of gave out and he wasn't really able to direct. And this allowed Danny an opportunity to go in, because some of the backstage and stuff, even though the actors didn't really care about him because he was a nobody in their eyes, the backstage crew knew of Danny and knew of his work, and they wanted try to boast for him to direct the play. So he did, and as a result, it became very successful. He had a taste of fame, basically, which was amazing. That was until the director sort of came back and kind of put him back into his place, saying that he's basically nobody and he should just stick to playwriting and not get in his way. In which Danny, at that point, he had a taste of success, of actual credit where credit was deserved, and he wasn't about to take that back, even though he was poor at the time and he was barely making ends meet for his little apartment and stuff. He didn't really care at that point because he had a taste of success and he wanted to pursue further. So he decided to quit, just leave it all behind, and go up to New York to Broadway where many young playwriters slash directors were known to make it big. And even though it was a tough road, he later on became very successful. So after during this time of like making it up the ladder, going higher and higher, like doing one play after another and stuff, he soon met this woman named Ashley. She was at the time a actress who, like many young actresses, she began acting at the age of 6. She didn't really want to pursue acting. It was something her mother wanted, so that way they could make money. And also, Ashley's mother was really obsessed with fame. So she basically was living her acting years through her daughter, saying that if it wasn't for her, then a star would never have been born. Which Alice, even though she didn't want to, she kind of agreed with her mother, going, okay, I'm going to be doing this. So she did, and she ended up making a lot of money and success, which made her mom proud, but wasn't something she really wanted to do. So, but at the same time, she was kind of felt like she was stuck in this situation of just being a pretty face and a good actress. So she never really had a dream in the first place. So to her, it was all irrelevant. It wasn't until she met him, and at first, she didn't really care about him and stuff. It wasn't until they had an opportunity to work with each other for one of the famous plays. And he needed a pretty face for it. And she found hers exceptionally pretty. And so he really wanted her in the play. And so after they worked together and stuff like that, they just started to develop feelings for each other, which led to them sort of dating but not really dating. It was kind of like a hookup. They had sex and all that, but nothing further than that, because she didn't really want a relationship, and since he was always busy, he didn't really want a relationship either, so it kind of worked out for both of them. That was until one of the performance nights that she got pregnant with a child, which at the time she was very scared about, because based on her past with her mother and stuff, she didn't feel like she was ready for a kid. She didn't even feel like she was ready for an actual relationship, let alone a child. So she was freaking out. But he always sort of liked her more than she liked him. So in a way, to him at the time, it was sort of a blessing that she got pregnant, because it gave him opportunity to be closer to her. Even though he wasn't quite ready to propose because of time and stuff, he just let bygones be bygones, basically gone with the wind without thinking, and was like, look, I love you. I don't know if you really love me or not, but I'm willing to help and stuff if you want to marry me. And so after he popped the question, she was sort of freaked out at first, but then she was kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. And as well, even though she doesn't want to admit it, there was a tiny part of her that did like him, but she was, again, afraid of commitment and all that. But she decided this was the best route and decided to accept his proposal. So they got married. It wasn't like a big wedding or anything. It was just like a little Las Vegas back sort of deal. So after they got married, she wasn't really able to keep acting because they had a newborn baby at the time. So she decided to just quit acting altogether and just become a mom, so that way she could take care of the child 24/7, even though She wasn't experienced with a child. It wasn't until after the baby was born, Mary Alice, that she started to like the idea of being a mom. That this was oddly enough, in a way, her dream, even though she didn't realize it at the time, and she was scared to death. But in a way, having this child was kind of a spark to her to want to um, quit acting altogether and decide to stay with the baby and be committed in the family. But for him, on the other hand, he still wanted to be the greatest director slash playwright ever. So he still wanted to climb the ladder to success. Even though he was already successful now, he didn't feel like it was enough. But he still loved his family and tried to balance it out to where he would come see them and then also keep pursuing his passion. But he wasn't exactly perfect with it because he wanted more. And as more, he wanted to become the greatest of all time. He wanted the highest fame there was. And so he kept climbing and climbing. But during the climbing, obviously, there came a lot of stress and there came a lot of worries and everything, as well as fame at some point got to his head because he just wanted more and more. So as a result, he started to see his kids less and less because it was kind of keeping him away from his true passion. So with all that, Ashley was starting to get worried because she was thinking that, oh, this is, my husband is barely helping me out. I am stuck all day with this child. Even though I love her to pieces, I'm not getting the help that I need, especially since my mom is so far away and everything. So it was basically, Alice was really stuck on her own with the child. And even though she was trying her best, she didn't really know how to take care of a baby. And so as a result, she was overstressed and she was really worried, and she tried her best to keep the family together by calling him and asking him when he will come home and stuff, and he never really gave her good answers, just saying that after this one performance, after this play is done, after this and that, just basically a bunch of excuses. And on his side, he's just living it up in the high life, doing work, but also at parties a bunch, and going back to he was overstressed and stuff, so it kind of caused him to go off the deep end and develop a drinking problem, also do a little drugs on the side, basically living up that Hollywood life, and which he was also surrounded by a lot of toxic people, so that didn't really help with his mental health or physical health at all. So she, at this point, Ashley, was finally fed up with it. She was like, she called him for the last time saying that, look, I am trying my best to take care of this child. We have barely seen you at all. This is basically your last chance. If it's either us, your family, or this stupid fantasy of reaching the top. And that kind of triggered him because all he wanted was to wanted his dream to come true. He didn't feel like it was fulfilled. He wanted higher status. He wanted to go even further. But he felt like that she was blocking him. But at the same time, he didn't want to let her go because he still loved her, even though they argue a bunch. At the end of the day, he still had feelings for her and still cared for the child, even though he barely saw the child. And she tried to just convince her to give him more time, that he'll be home soon, and she was fed up with it. She was tired of it. Tired of the empty promises, tired of the times when he did come home, when he came home, to be either drunk off his ass or barely there because he's super tired. And so she was done. She basically said, if you hung up this phone right now, if you, then that's to me telling me that you're done with this and it's over. And he didn't take her seriously at the time because also during the call he was sort of drunk. And so he was just saying it's probably just steam that she'll blow it off the next day. But that's not what happened. And soon after that, he never got another call from her after that night. And he tried to call her, but she never answered. And that spiraled down to a new set of emotions with on top of stress and people wanting more. But due to this addition of stress and also sadness, he began to write less and less. He began to act up more during the scenes with the actors. Basically being a total jackass. And Jackass would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't showing any results, because there has not been one good performance after that. So as a result, he ended up drinking more, also doing more, partying, but by this point, nobody really cared about him anymore. People started to ditch him left and right, and he lost everything. He became, lost his home, lost his family, lost all at once, leaving him with nobody but his regret of this decision. But even after all that, for some reason, he still had this false hope that despite losing everything, if he just went back home and back to his family, everything will be okay. That he could just start up fresh from where he started and he could be there for the kid. But as he came home, his wife basically kicked him out, threw his stuff away, saying to never come back. And that led him to the present him, which is basically talking to her and telling her that just don't do it. It's not even worth it. In which she was like, just because you made your mistakes doesn't, major mistakes, bumps in the way, doesn't mean you've completely lost your dream. In which he was kind of baffled for a 12-year-old who seemed to make a few dumb decisions. She also seemed to be very wise, in which he was sort of baffled by it. And she tried to explain that there was another dream that she had besides being a dancer. And it was that one day that she would come find her father, who was a famous playwright. And even though he lost his way, and her mother never thought that he would come back, truly come back to them, she was determined to find him. And he was kind of wondering what she was talking about. And then at that point, she finally did say who she was, which is Mary Ann. And that's where a memory popped up of a child of which they named Mary Ann after his late mother, who passed away. So by that point, they've sort of shared what happened all this time. And at the end, she basically asked him, are you ready to come home? Are you ready to pursue a new dream? And at that point, his eyes filled up with tears, wondering, finally seeing the path of which he couldn't see before. And that is my pitch for my movie. Thank you for listening.